Yo guys, this is DD2 guy here. I just actually had a request to show you guys how to take on Onslaught. I just wanted to show you guys my build for Onslaught. So I target the lane. So whatever condition there is, I try to target that condition to do the most amount of damage. So if it's a long shot, I would use an archer, maybe a ballista, poison dart tower, maybe even an earth shatter tower. The earth shatter tower does actually cause a huge lag for PS4 players, so that is a bit of a pain. So I try to avoid that. Yeah, so I just wanted to explain all of the basics behind this build and things you can swap and remove, because this is way too much to use for lane. So the first thing in the front, I put an oil geyser and a geyser trap. So this oil geyser, that is super recommended. The reason for that is, according to the DD2 patch update, oil and fire will ignite your enemy, and when you ignite, you take off some of their armor. With that, all sources of damage take an extra 25%, which is really awesome. So oil geyser is what I would recommend. Another cool one I haven't really played around with much is this geyser trap. So what's cool about the geyser trap is, because it's water, it's very likely an enemy will be electrocuted here. So what I use for my geyser trap is, let's see if I can find it. So this isn't the ideal build. This is just a shard I randomly had, one of my old shards. Drenched is something that I would like to experiment with. I don't use this build, but it does seem like it could be very useful. And freezing rain, so I would love to be able to just freeze my enemies. I mean, when you're dealing with the Onslaught, it's really about being able to slow your enemies, stop your enemies, get your defenses to do lots of damage, and hopefully enough damage to be able to knock that opponent out. So yeah, that is something experimental which I haven't really played with. The geyser trap could be potentially good. I haven't experimented. Oil geyser is what I would recommend, but you can try out the geyser trap. I mean, if you do have extra DU from just removing those towers, if you're dealing with that 6th wave with bosses, you can actually save some DU and just put some extra defenses up, which is really cool. So yeah, that's the first two here. The next thing is the buff beam. Buff beam is very useful to increase that DPS of your defenses. So what I'm going with my buff beam is boosted beam. I can show you guys actually. So here's my buff beam build. So critical damage, diverse critical damage, and diverse power with boosted beam destruction. Now vampiric is slightly better for me. You can go critical damage. It's very similar from what I've observed. Critical damage and vampiric, it seems to be very close. Just check on your build to see which one actually gives you a better DPS. So both of them are good. Yeah, so that is what I would use for the buff beam. The next thing is this explosive trap. So explosive traps are awesome. They do great amount of damage. There's really like not much difference to how you would set it up to mine. So I'm going with tenacity, anti-melee rate with mass destruction, and fire for effect. This is quite powerful. So I could use a diverse build because I do have quite a few defenses nearby. That also works nicely. So I like taking on some Kazi lanes. So you can take out tenacity, put in a controller. That would also be really nice. But just for Kazi lanes, I do have tenacity and for cyborgs. That's also quite good. My reflect beam. So the reflect beam, just for diversity and earth. What I'm actually using on my reflect beam is attack rate, controller, and tenacity with shattering torpedo, vicious strikes, and defense rate. It's not the strongest, but it gets some of the art damage that I need. The next thing is my Proton. So if you do not have a tenacity or automation on your Protons, do not put it this far forward. Cyborgs will disable this defense here. So very concerning if you build it like this. Same thing with the buff beam, it can get disabled if it's too forward. It needs to be protected by a reflect beam. I would recommend protecting your defenses using an automation chart, which you can get from Prime or Mastery. Yeah, or you can use a tenacity 10 like I'm using. So one of those two approaches will work. So my oil geyser does have a tenacity 10 on it. So let me show you guys my oil geyser build. So this oil geyser build here is not focused about DPS. So I'm using attack rate 9, tenacity 10 and attack range with deadly strikes, oily entrapment and oil spill. So I really want to slow those enemies. So that oil will really slow the enemies, which is really what I'm targeting, to slow the enemies so that they take more damage. By moving slower, they have an opportunity to take more damage, get that range that's slow. So slowing them down, oiling them, potentially stunning them, which is cool. And then tenacity definitely for cyborgs, range to just spread it out as far as it can to slow them, and rate would be 10 if I could, but I don't have a 10 available, so 9 will just do the job for now. Obviously you still want to make sure you max out that rate though, so I am sort of breaking one of the important rules, but it's not that much. But I would still love to be able to just have a rate 10 there. Yeah, so the next thing thereafter is, after the explosive trap, would be my flame aura. So my flame aura is just all about that DPS. So I'm going with a diverse build. So this is using destruction, mass destruction and deadly strikes with some diverse mods. So you can use anti-mods to also do really well, but because I have so many defenses, I'm going with a diverse build, and also it attacks often, so hopefully it'll do a lot of crit damage. So what this does is, it doesn't do a lot of DPS, 5.49, so it's not the best, but it'll get that job done. Yeah, the next thing is my Protons. Let me just briefly go over them. So my Protons are tenacity, poison and rate, a very common build with frosty beams, destruction and defense rate. The defense rate is slightly overcapped, so it does help with the frost lanes. Yeah, my boost aura is a very experimental build. So this is something I'm trying out. I don't recommend it because I need to test it out more. It's using drain aura, diverse power servo and defense power. So this is just experimental mods, just me testing out the drain aura. You can just follow my buff beam, that'll also be pretty good. Or you can use defense power instead of critical damage. That is up to you. From my understanding, it seems that defense power, which is that power servo, actually is very useful when you're starting off. It's more useful than critical damage. But later on, critical damage is quite useful. Going with boosted drop, it's very important to slow your enemy for them to just get more damage. Vicious strikes to increase that range and that slow entire for that large area, and destruction. And the next thing I'm going with is a tree. So the tree is completely up to you. I wouldn't recommend a tree. If you are dealing with throwers, just put a tree, put a reflect beam. That will just save you some DU so you can focus on more tougher lanes. Yeah, but that's still up to you. Another thing is, if you're dealing with some physical lanes that require physical damage, just focus on your explosive traps and probably don't use a flame aura. And vice versa applies to a lane that requires magical damage. So you want to just maybe put 2-3 flame auras, get rid of that explosive trap. Yeah. So the next thing I want to show you is my tree build. So the tree build is up to you. I'm going with let's see, this tree here. which is Fortification, Juggernaut, and Explosive Shield Guard. With these three mods, you can use an automation, but I generally use automation for other defenses that I need to focus on. So my automation shard may go to my weapon manufacturer or my obelisk. So yeah, this is pretty much it from that side. Oh yes, the lightning aura. The lightning aura is really useful when it comes to the final wave. Otherwise, it's just okay. So the reason why it's very useful in the final wave is because this this lightning aura can only target a single enemy at once. So if I were to place one here, it's only gonna attack one enemy at a time. So that is a major disadvantage of this. It's not very good for attacking many enemies simultaneously, but what it is good for is its scaling. So this isn't a solid build for a lightning aura. It only does 1.92 million damage, but the amazing thing is how well it scales. So if I scale it once, 3.89 million, and if I just max it out, it's doing 10 million DPS, which is awesome. So the ideal build for the lightning aura, which I'm unable to produce, would be that would be Destructive Pylon, Vamp, and I would put a Mass Destruction for the final wave. That's actually very useful, swapping out your Mass Destruction here, because the lightning aura scales so well, it's able to do lots of damage. So I'm going with a Water Elemental. This is just for a chance to stun the enemies, because lightning and water will create that shock, and that will then stun the enemy, which is cool. So this isn't the best build. So the ideal build is Destruction, Vamp, and Attack Rate Gilded. And the mods would be Anti-Mini-Boss, Anti-Melee, and the last one is Dependent. It could be Anti-Chaos, maybe Anti-Orc, one of those two. But yeah, those are pretty awesome. Stacking a whole bunch of anti-mods here, and then just going with Attack Rate Gilded, Vamp, and Destruction, or taking out Vamp and putting a Mass Destruction. That would be a really powerful build. But yeah, I don't have the resources to pull that build off right now. Yeah, so that's pretty much it from here. The next thing is the Frostbite Tower. So Frostbite Towers is awesome for 3 reasons. So the first reason is it slows enemies, and slowing enemies allows all of these defenses to do that extra damage, which is awesome. Besides slowing enemies, it can freeze them. So it can freeze a target up to a few seconds. Let's go to that build. So it can freeze a target for 7 seconds, which is pretty cool. So if it freezes a target, it's going to stay there for a while, which is awesome, and it's going to take lots of damage. Additionally, because I'm using a Reflect Beam with Earth from that Shattering Torpedo, it's going to take extra Earth damage. That is according to the patch notes, so that's pretty cool. It'll take some extra damage there because of a frozen enemy and that Earth damage, so that's pretty cool. The next thing that I want to mention is that, let me show you guys, is this wonderful shard, which is Frosty Power. What this does is it passes the power of this defense onto wherever it's applying that frost. So right here it's applying the frost here, and towers nearby, defenses nearby, are going to get buffed. So let me just show you guys, and it does work quite nicely. So normally my Flame Aura, it just does, with that Destructive Pylon from my Lightning Aura, it's just going to do 2.67 million. But because this Frost Beam is passing defense power to nearby defenses, look at that, it's doing a nice 3.33 million, which is awesome. So this is really awesome. Using that Frostbite Tower, this is also going to work for explosive traps. So getting that extra DPS from Frostbite Tower is really awesome. So what kind of relic would I use? I would use a pretty cool one. This is actually a relic that I just stole from my old boost aura. So this is my sort of my boost aura that I used to use, that I just put it here. You don't want to go for that critical damage. That's not really going to get you much benefits. I would assume maybe a fortification. That mod may be useful. The reason why is because you do have a vampiric empowerment, which does work. So if you increase the health of this tower, it's actually going to affect the defense power. This doesn't work with destruction, so vampiric empowerment is really cool. It does offer that boost. So from 3.33 million damage, if I were to take that out, we're looking at what's the damage? Let's just wait for it to have that effect. 3.24. So it does make a difference, which is really cool. Yeah, that's what I would recommend. So the Frostbite tower is really cool. It makes the defenses stronger. It also has a chance to freeze the enemies, and it also slows the enemies. So 3 reasons why they're pretty awesome. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I want to show you guys in terms of the build. So it's really up to you to target that lane for what you're trying to do. So I also have another build. I do have a weapon manufacturer build. This is a super dynamic build. This is my flexible build that I play around with. The reason for that is, so I use defense rate 10, poison 10, and stunning revelations 10. You can swap these shards for whatever you want, depending on the lane. So if I was up against a frost lane, I would use a defense rate. If I was up against a Kazi lane, or a lane with lots of cyborgs, and if I want to position this anywhere, I would use an automation. So I would just swap this out and dump in an automation and get the job done. If I was, and I like to just keep my range. If I was up against a lane that was headstrong, or maybe even a lane that I needed to, it needed to be drenched, I would swap this out and put a water element. I don't have one here, so I would swap that out and put an water element shard. So that water element shard would do really nice. Yeah, and that's pretty much all I want to show you guys. So this is doing not a lot, 5.49 million. So there's 3 reasons why it could be higher. The first thing is, this is not upgraded to Chaos 9 max, and all of my defenses here are not Chaos 9 except my Flame Aura, which is only level 1. The other thing that I'm missing out is I do not have a lot of AP reset, so I just have 1 Ancient Power. So because of that, I'm missing out on a lot of power. And the third reason for increasing it is my actual Ascension. So my Ascension cap is quite low, it's only at 175. So this is limited, it could be stronger. So hypothetically, if I were to upgrade everything, I'm just curious. Let's see how well it performs. We're looking at 17 million DPS, which is pretty cool. Also, I guess the boost aura would also make some difference. We're looking at 18.7. Let's do another experiment. Let's take this out. So from 18.7, if I were to take that out and dump it here, 18.7, this is doing 19.7 now. So that is pretty cool. Yeah guys, that is pretty much me. I use other defenses as well for targeting that lane. I do use archers sometimes, I do use ballistas, all of that stuff, poison dart towers. It's really up to you if you want to take down those long shot lanes. I like those, but this build here is quite good. I can't tell you whether what's the ideal build, because whether to add like 2 claymores or 2 explosive traps, because I haven't really been on the high floors and I haven't really had any problems with the floors I'm at. So yeah, that is pretty much me. It's a bit of a long video, but yeah, I think I got everything I wanted to say about taking on some Onslaught. Yeah, that's me. DD2 guy out.